It's a year since Russia's invasion of Ukraine. There's no sign of a peace deal. How does Russia think they will win this war?
So what we see now is that President Putin is in no way preparing for peace. He's preparing for more war, launching new offensive operations. So we need to support Ukraine to ensure that they prevail as a sovereign, independent nation. And this has now become a grinding war of attrition, which is actually a battle of logistics, meaning we need to ensure that they get the ammunition, the fuel, the spare parts, and all the weapons they need, the Ukrainians, to liberate their lands, and that's exactly what the NATO allies and partners are doing.
Secretary General Putin also said in a speech that Russia will, of course, suspend New START, which meaning that there are no treaties governing the nuclear actions of Russia, of the US, let alone China. What does that mean for NATO? Does NATO need to do anything to prepare for this?
So I regret the decision by Russia to suspend their participation in the New START agreement. This is one of the very last agreements of arms control, and the New START agreement is an agreement that limits the number of long-range missiles, strategic missiles and weapons. And of course, this is a reckless decision because we need arms control. And we need transparency. So we call on Russia to reconsider and to respect and to fully implement the New START agreement, including the inspection regime, which is extremely important. And then, of course, we will closely monitor what they actually do. Russia has, over the last years, invested heavily in new modern nuclear capabilities, and we are taking the necessary steps to ensure that our deterrence remains safe and credible.
But does an unregulated nuclear world mean Vladimir Putin is more likely to use nukes?
First of all, a world without nuclear arms control arrangements, agreements, risks leading to more nuclear weapons. And we need to understand that this is part of a pattern. Not so many years ago, Russia walked away from the INF Treaty, and the INF Treaty banned all intermediate range weapons. And now they are starting to walk away from the New START agreement, banning or regulating the number of long-range weapons. So more nuclear weapons, of course, makes the world more dangerous. And that's exactly why we need the agreements. That's why we need the transparency, the inspection they facilitate. And that's also why the Russian decisions to violate the INF Treaty, to suspend the New START Treaty, these are reckless and dangerous decisions.
Secretary General, China looks set to become more engaged in the Ukraine crisis, either through a peace plan or, according to us, even through providing arms to Russia. What would the arrival of Chinese weapons on the battlefield mean for NATO?
That will be a big and serious mistake by China if they start to provide lethal aid to Russia. So far, we haven't seen that happening, but we have seen signs that China is considering to provide military aid to Russia. And we are watching closely, and of course China should not do that, because then China will support an illegal war or aggression against a sovereign independent state in Europe, Ukraine. And China, and this will be a blatant violation of the UN Charter, and China is a member of the UN Security Council, so they should not violate the UN Charter, and that's a clear message from NATO allies and from the United States and others.
But are you concerned that this for NATO could quickly lead to a proxy war between NATO allies and a Cold War type scenario with Iran, Russia, China, and North Korea?
First of all, we need to understand what this is. This is a war aggression by Russia against Ukraine, and Ukraine has the right to protect and defend itself. That is a right which is enshrined in the UN Charter, and we, NATO allies, we have the right to support Ukraine. NATO allies are not party to the conflict, but we support Ukraine in upholding the right to defend their own country. Russia is violating international law. Russia is launching this war against Ukraine, and Russia is reaching out to other authoritarian regimes like Iran. We have seen the Iranian drones, but also North Korea, to get ammunition, to get weapons, to get support. And again, our only answer to that is to ensure that we provide sufficient support to Ukraine so they can prevail and push back the Russian invaders. And China should not, of course, become part of this by providing lethal aid, military support to Russia. The challenge and the problem is that China has not yet been able to condemn the invasion. And we see how China and Russia are working more and more closely. And of course, this is something which we follow also very closely from the NATO side.
Mr. Stoltenberg, what likelihood do you attach to both Finland and Sweden being members of NATO by that mid-July Vilnius summit?
I'm confident that both Finland and Sweden will become NATO allies. All NATO allies, also Turkey, made an historic decision last July at our summit in Madrid to invite Finland and Sweden, and all allies also have signed the accession protocols. And so far, 28 out of 30 allies have already ratified. Hungary has made it clear they will ratify the two protocols for Finland and Sweden early March. I welcome that. I met with President Erdogan last week. I see some encouraging signs. I think it's absolutely possible to get Finland ratified in the near future, and we continue to work for that. And then on Sweden, there are some more challenges that has to be addressed, but President Erdogan and I agreed last week that there will be a meeting between Finland, Sweden and Turkey in Brussels mid-March here at the NATO headquarters, and under my auspices, and they will sit down and meet and try to address the challenges we have to overcome to ensure that also Sweden becomes a full member in the near future. My message has been all the way that both Finland and Sweden should be ratified now. They are ready and they should be ratified, but Turkey has another position, and therefore we need to find a way to solve that issue.